Let's head out to Lincoln, Nebraska. We got to talk some Husker recruiting. There were some big highlights from the weekend. Colorado comes into town. They get humbled, and Nebraska is riding high after their week 2 win. They had a 5-star athlete on campus, Michael Terry III. He's from the state of Texas. He's trending heavily to the Longhorns heading into this. But what is Michael Terry saying coming out of this Nebraska visit?
Josh, I had so much fun talking to you about this on our recruit reaction show right after the game on the On3 Recruits channel. We had Hayes Fawcett on there. Michael Terry was trying to get on with us 2 hours after the game. So he was in that locker room having a great time around the players, the coaches, and he really feels that Nebraska is going to win for a long time. Now, is it enough to surpass Texas in this recruitment? Let's see where the dust settles. But he had a fantastic time at Nebraska, spent time with TJ Lateef, Cortez Mills, certainly got around Coach McGuire, Coach Rule. No program is recruiting Michael Terry harder than Nebraska right now, and he couldn't have picked a better weekend to get back. He's been there 3 times this calendar year. Nebraska is preaching a versatile approach in the offense where he can do a lot of things that also excites him, but it's the people at Nebraska, it's the belief in Matt Rule and company that have Nebraska in the thick of this one for the nation's #1 athlete, Michael Terry.
Now, Christian Jones was also on campus. He's the #1 player in the state of Nebraska, linebacker Christian Jones. This was a really pivotal visit for him. What was he saying after this one?
Man, he said it was the best game environment that he's ever been in, one of his best trips to Nebraska. He's been to Nebraska a ton. He was there the weekend before. He's at the spring game. He's at all the major recruiting weekends. Something about that recruitment has always been like, I think he wants to leave the state, right? Like Notre Dame trended at one point in his process before they filled up at linebacker. But he says he's going to keep watching Nebraska. Now, Oklahoma, he's going to be at Oklahoma this weekend. Oklahoma's a leader before this Nebraska visit. But Matt Rule company going to keep recruiting them, keep getting them on campus, and it was another outstanding environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, where do things stand with these 2 flip targets? We're talking Dawson Merritt, the edge committed to Alabama, and Cortez Mills, who is committed to Oklahoma. They both made it in this weekend, despite fans in our comment section all week saying that they wouldn't make it in. Your intel held true. So now what are you hearing after the visit on Dawson Merritt and Cortez Mills?
Well, sometimes things don't hold true, so we're not going to sit here and pump our chests out. But Dawson Merritt was on campus again. He's visited a couple times since he committed to Alabama. I still think that's going to be a tough flip, an uphill battle. But communication remains with Nebraska, and as long as that's reciprocated from the Merritt family, Matt Rule and company, led by Matt Rule, who's going to recruit Dawson Merritt. Matt Rule coached with his dad. Mm-hmm. Dawson had a fantastic time, man. He talked to me about Nebraska finding their quarterback, about the defense playing well, about it being a great atmosphere. So I think he views Nebraska as a place he can be very successful. Just Alabama is where he's committed, and I haven't heard anything different about a potential flip or anything right now. And then Cortez Mills came in with his mom, was around TJ Lateef a lot. They had those recruits down in like the first row, soaking everything up. Nebraska, they need more playmakers to be the offense they want to be. They feel like they certainly have the quarterback under center now to build around for the next only 2+ years now. We expect them there just 3 at this point. But Dylan Raiola, he's as good a peer recruiter as there is in the country. He knows how important it is for him to help recruit the 2025 and 2026 classes to get more players around him. And I'm still gathering intel on Cortez Mills as I talk to you guys right now, but getting him back to campus is huge, especially because historically Dabo Sweeney, Brent Venables, those guys have been pretty strict on a no-visit policy. So we'll see what that means with Cortez Mills. I think those policies in this day and age in recruiting are outdated. But I never judge how a man's going to run his program. So,
I think you can get away with it as long as you're winning and winning big. I think the more you win, I mean, look at when Clemson was at the top, that was an easy rule to enforce. When Clemson's modern day, it's a little bit harder to enforce that rule.
Absolutely. And when you can just pivot to another great player, like, all right, dude, you want to mess around and lose your spot over here, we'll go get Johnny 4-5-star over here. And, he's happy to play here as well.
All right. There's a lot of 2026 targets on campus, and this is really important because this is where the groundwork gets laid. When we're talking about leaders, in the 2025 cycle. These leaders kind of this happens in the spring of the last cycle, the fall of the last cycle, and Nebraska had some heavy hitters on campus for the 2026 cycle. They had the number one offensive tackle in America, Jackson Cantwell, after making run at Brandon Baker and David Sanders. You kind of wonder if they got involved with David Sanders as early as they're involved with Jackson Cantwell and getting him on campus, would they have had a better shot? Probably. They also had Michael Clayton on campus. Steve, run us through some of these 2026 highlights out of Nebraska.
Yeah, Jackson Cantwell had a great time. Georgia, LSU, Alabama, some of the programs that I thought coming into the fall were in great position, but he's been in Nebraska a couple times now, and he can believe in this program now, right? He can see it with his own eyes that they are on a track record to break a 7-season losing streak. They haven't had a winning season in 7 seasons. So they're about done selling a vision. If they can keep it rolling and showing we're here now, we need you to come in and help us restore Nebraska back to what it was in the 90s. Jackson Cantwell enjoyed being around the staff. He was one of the most recognized recruits on campus. There's not a fan base that treats recruits better when they're on campus than the Nebraska fans, and he was certainly one of the faces in the crowd. You can't miss him. I mean, the man is as big as Taylor Lewan, if not a little bigger, who was there on campus with Will Compton. He got a shout out on that show. So he felt like a celebrity in that Nebraska recruiting section, and Nebraska's not going to drop the ball recruiting Jackson Cantwell moving forward. And he's someone that could play right away. He could at a lot of places, but at Nebraska, I think if he picked the Huskers, you pencil him right in at the top of the depth chart there at one of those tackle positions. So it's an advantageous deal for him. And then Michael Clayton's a quarterback from Florida. He told me Nebraska leads, so I have an on-3 RPM in favor of the Huskers. Michael Clayton's going to be at South Carolina this weekend. It's going to be a massive weekend in Columbia. That's going to be the highlight of our Recruit Reaction show this weekend, so make sure you South Carolina fans watching right now are locked in with us this weekend as we break down what happens down there in Columbia. But Nebraska's setting the pace in Michael Clayton's recruitment.
All right. Well, Nebraska made a statement this weekend. They moved to 2-0. So, Nebraska fans, how are we feeling about the recruiting weekend? Talk to Steve and I. Let us know. Comment section below.